What's going on, everybody? It's Chief. It's TJ. How about the interesting, intricate, awkward silence to kick off the show? That was a moment of silence for our good friend Dean. You guys didn't know that was coming? No, everything's just fine. TJ didn't even know I was planning the awkward moment of silence. For those of you that have watched 1990s and early 2000s music videos and movies, we're pouring one out for Dean today. No, Dean is still alive. We're going to say body parts. We're leading into with Dean. Dean is out with the fish. We've got TJ stepping in. We've got Chief stepping in. We've got our illustrious producer, Steve Hoffman, who's going to be behind the scenes, providing the best GIFs across this great green earth. If things come up in your mind, folks, bring it to the forefront. I think Steve has the GIF chops or GIF, depending on how you want to pronounce it, to get it done. We've got Devin in the chat. We've got Yeezy in the chat. We've got David Correa in the chat. We've got Derek Ringering in the chat. Let's go. Let's go. Steve, bringing it in early, folks. It is GrindersLive coming to you a little bit after 5 o'clock today, but that is all right. We're here to bring you content. I'm fired up. TJ's fired up. TJ, how you doing, my brother?
I am fired up. Great intro. And when I saw it was both of us doing the show together, I thought to myself, ooh, this is another Sunday. We don't have a Sunday show this week because it's the Pro Bowl. We're not back till the Super Bowl. And so it felt good to be able to mix in one of these shows, get to hang out with my good friend, and break down this big 10-game slate.
Yeah, man. I am excited. Loving the slate today, TJ. Folks, we're going to be functioning off of the 4:30 p.m. NBA injury report. For those of you that need to know that's how we're going to be functioning. And TJ, we've got what I call a nice slate, a quaint slate, not too big, not too small. If you're like me, you got to go somewhere after lock, you can do that tonight, TJ. You don't have to be handcuffed to your computer. You don't have to be handcuffed to your phone, your wife, your girlfriend, your kids. You can go out and enjoy your family because, folks, this slate ends at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the last game of the night, at least what I have, is the Toronto Raptors versus the Houston Rockets and the Charlotte Hornets versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Golden State Warriors versus the Memphis Grizzlies, and the San Antonio Spurs versus the New Orleans Pelicans. So, and yes, I know we've got that Orlando, Minnesota game in there. That's going to be a tricky game. We're waiting on some. That's an interesting game, whatever. That's how this slate is going to close. And folks, please take this time and go out and enjoy yourself. If you don't have a wife, if you don't have a girlfriend, if you don't have friends at all, if you don't have anything else to do, put that phone away. Eat you a nice Italian dinner. Eat you a nice steak dinner. Eat you a nice barbecue dinner. Eat you a nice sub dinner. Do something detached from DFS for a little while. Your brain and your conscience will thank you. TJ, overarching feel on this slate. What are your thoughts? Not necessarily game by game, feel of the slate. How do we want to go through construction? How do we want to build lineups tonight? TJ, what are we thinking?
The biggest thing that stands out is even though it's a 10-game slate, it doesn't quite feel that big. One of the reasons why is because we do have that sprint aspect of it. It's only they all start within an hour of each other. But the other reason is because we have a few of these games with a few old-fashioned totals. And I don't mean old-fashioned like the 80s. I mean old-fashioned like 5 years ago. They're in the 210s, maybe low 220s range. And then we have a few of these that are just super, super high, kind of headlined by Sacramento and Indiana. One of the reasons I kind of waved off the Orlando and Minnesota game, because they like both of those teams and a couple of these other ones, because the slate's so big, I'm almost just going to ignore, and I'm going to really, really focus in on a couple of these other teams.
Yeah, for sure. As I was looking over the slate, TJ, it felt to me like we're in this weird realm where earlier this season, DraftKings made it very hard for us to build quality lineups. As we're now approaching the All-Star game, it looks like DraftKings is making it very easy for us to build lineups. So when we have a week like this week where we were able to get 4 and 5K guys that could produce 30 and 40-point fantasy games, like we got out of the niche, for example, with Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo before those prices were elevated due to Randall and a couple other guys sitting, Randall and OG Anunoby to be more specific. We got really good value out of those guys, and it took them about 2 games to raise the bar, raise the salaries. What we're seeing, TJ, now is DraftKings is now being fairly loose on most of the good players. So where earlier this year, Kawhi Leonard, as an example, I'm not saying he was, I'm saying Kawhi may have been 9,500. We're getting him in the 8K range. Paul George is 7,900. And I'm talking about these guys because that's probably the first thing we're going to talk about. But all throughout this slate, TJ, most players are probably $500 to $800 too cheap. And so we can get very creative in our lineup construction. And it feels to me like we don't have to reach all the way up. It feels like we can get nice quality players in the 6, 7, and 8K range mostly. There's a 9K guy that I really like, and I did write him up today, and we'll talk about it as we get through this slate. You may know who I'm talking about. But I think that's kind of where we're headed. And then maybe DraftKings gets a little bit more dynamic with the pricing a little bit later. So let's kick this thing off. It's the Clippers. It's the Pistons. This game is kicking off at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. TJ, this feels like the highest upside blowout game we have on the slate tonight, maybe outside of Charlotte, OKC, and we'll get to that game. Let's talk about the Clippers. Let's talk about the Pistons. TJ, over to you.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention too quick is shout out to our guy, Mr. Richard in chat, asking people to hit the like button. Hit that like button for sure. And also hop in that RotoGrinders Discord live stream chat and hit the RotoGrinders logo on our giveaway message because Steve is going to be giving away 2 free weeks of RotoGrinders Premium in the Discord, drawn at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So hit the thumbs up on the stream, hit the RotoGrinders logo in Discord, and let's break down some basketball. Obviously, we got the Clippers in Detroit. I don't really have any. Detroit is one of the teams in this game that I'm just going, nah, I'm good. I don't need that on a 10-game slate. I'm crossing them off completely.
Don't need that. Don't need
it. Don't need it. Like maybe Danilo Gallinari if you're trying to do something crazy at 3,300, but I just still don't really think we need it. Like you said, sorry, Steve, I enunciated that very poorly. Not 2 weeks to one winner, but 2 winners 1 week each. I just don't think we really need it because we don't have the 12K Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic to pay up for, right? The most expensive guy I want to pay up for is Domantas Sabonis today. So I don't think I really need the Gallinari. I don't think I need the $3,100 Kevin Knox. Amir Coffey, cheap. Don't think I need it. The only guys I'm looking to go to are on the Clippers side of things. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, both still great. We're not expecting a ton of minutes from Paul George today. So Harden and Leonard are the 2 guys I'd be looking to go to the most. And then I do think Norm Powell is a fine salary saver. He's played really well lately. He's always been a guy, speaking as a Raptor fan, that he's just always been so streaky. He looks like a legit 6 man of the year candidate sometimes, and then he just disappears at others. And so he's playing well lately. I think we can ride that train. If this one does happen to get a little bit uglier, maybe instead of the 26 minutes, he sees 28, 29, and I think he could be a solid play. David Correa mentioning, looks like my wife is home. David Correa mentioning that Gallo started the second half last game. If we do get Gallo in the starting lineup, I was going to say, just going against his old team. Every team is an old team for Gallo, but he actually had some good years with the Clippers. And so if we do get him starting, going up against his old team, I do think he is absolutely in play as a starter because those 20 minutes probably go up to 22, 23, maybe even 24, and then he becomes a very reasonable value play.
Absolutely. And folks, listen, I think TJ's handing out incredible information here. We want to build this show, TJ, to try to help you craft lineups that are going to get you to the top of the leaderboards. How can you do that without TJ and Chief? Folks, you need to be getting in SimLabs. SimLabs is the expert DFS lineup generation tool from RotoGrinders and Fantasy Labs, and now you can use it both for NFL and NBA. With just a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built, correlated lineups for whatever contest you're playing. Do you need to build something quickly before lock? Quickly build a set of lineups if you're out of time. Want to see who might be falling under the radar? TJ, that's you. TJ's giving you the spicy. So is SimLabs, right? Use the tool to examine players the field might be sleeping on. Note, if you're a combo subscriber, you already have access to our NFL and NBA SimLabs, while sports-specific premium subs will have access to the corresponding sport in SimLabs. Let me put that in layman's terms. If you have both NBA and NFL, you've already got access to both. If you have NFL premium and not NBA premium, you only have access to NFL. If you have NBA premium and not NFL, you only have access to NBA. All right, folks. I like this game. I think we've got some interesting pieces here. Like Kawhi Leonard is the guy I'm interested in, just because he seems to be consistently, TJ, now giving us that 45 to 50 fantasy point. Now, I don't want to say floor, but performances. And he's got upside, I think, now for 60. My concern in this matchup is he could hit it, but if he doesn't get into the fourth quarter, it's going to really hamper his upside. So I consider him one of the best tournament plays on the slate, which is what we're talking about. If you can risk it, you might end up with the biscuit, because Kawhi Leonard, folks, does have upside against a putrid, dreadful, terrible, awful Detroit Pistons defense today. TJ, anything else you want to add for the Clippers and Pistons? And look, I did my best impersonation of Dean, and I did not really hand out body parts. Don't worry, folks. The main one is Ivica Zubac and Musa Diabate, who's not playing anyway. Then, of course, Cade is probable. Muscala's out. Rodin's out. Isaiah Stewart is out, which is important. And then Stanley Umude. But those guys are two-way players. You don't have to know about that. But I will say this. I do think there are some openings for the Detroit Pistons. They still have a quite too many players for my blood. So Gallinari could start and then not start the second half. I do think Bogdanovich, Duren, Ivy, I think those guys are safe, along with Cade Cunningham. Those are probably the safe ones. Wouldn't you agree, TJ?
Yeah, same page for me there. The other thing I wanted to throw out there is we have about 150 people watching right now. This usually goes up and up throughout the show. If we can get, say, 75 likes, I want 75 likes. I'm currently building the same game parlay I'm building for one of these games coming up. Is currently the odds are at 401 to 1, and I'm trying to make it even bigger here. I got a massive parlay I'll tell the people about if we can get up to 75 likes.
Okay, well, TJ, you've led us right into this thing. Speaking of parlays, props, and pick'em, folks, you need to check out the brand new props and pick'em package. The experts at RotoGrinders projections team take our premium stats and comb through the market for any inefficiencies. Using our model, you can easily see which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will hit based on our tool. You can also try out the new props and pick'em package as a 3-day pass. Keep in mind that this will auto-renew at the monthly rate once 3 days are up. Use the link in the description for a 3-day pass of our props and pick'em package. It's the Miami Heat. It's the Washington Wizards. Who do we have on the injury report tonight that's important? Duncan Robinson will be sitting for the Miami Heat tonight. I think that is of importance. And on the other side, TJ, this one is actually slightly bigger than most people will anticipate. We've got Marvin Bagley III not suiting up for the Washington Wizards. I think that's going to open it up for a guy like Daniel Gafford on the Wizards side to pick up 30 to 35 minutes. And I think on the Miami Heat side, we make it a little extra Josh Richardson run. I still think the Miami Heat have a lot of mouths to feed. Josh Richardson is 3,500. Maybe something to consider. Let's talk about it. TJ, over to you.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea at all. It's Washington. They're probably the best possible matchup I just don't really know how much I'm going to need the value. I think Josh Richardson is the one value guy I'd be looking to go with. Kevin Love at 3,400 is somewhat interesting here. Bam's fine. I think Rozier is somewhat reasonable, but it's mostly for me on the Miami side of things. Just Butler, Harrow, and Richardson. They're the guys whose price tag I like the most. Richardson just worries me for tournaments, though. Like, he is so cheap that you really don't need much. But I kind of view Josh Richardson as like Danilo Gallinari. How big really is the ceiling? I don't know if we're going to see him play that much in the blowout anyways, and he's coming off the bench. So I don't love Josh Richardson. I think he's a reasonable tournament salary saver, but it's mostly just Butler and Harrow for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good spot for Miami. I keep saying this, though, TJ. I still think there's a lot of mouths to feed on this team, right? Bam at 8,400 on DraftKings. I like it. Like, I think it's fine. I think Jimmy Butler at 7,800 is fine. I think Hero at 6,700 is fine. Rozier at 6,700 is fine. I was on the morning grind last night, and one of the things that was interesting to me, TJ, is most of these guys are taking 12 to 15 shots. You know, whatever guy gets to 20-plus shots that night is probably the guy, as long as he's making them, that's going to have a little bit of upside. But, you know, if they're all sitting in that 12 to 15 range, none of them have the upside that I like. Now, we have seen Jimmy Butler start to pick up the peripheral stats here recently, and this is a spot where he could pick up a few more rebounds, pick up a few more assists. Same thing for Bam. But I'm not overly enthused about the Miami Heat team in general. I think for me, TJ, I'm going to treat this team like we were treating Brooklyn earlier. You take Bam, you take Jimmy, you take Rozier, you take Hero. You put them all in the group. You say, hey, I want 0 to 1 if it's in a lineup. I don't want multiple Miami Heat in my lineup, even with Josh Richardson. I don't want that. Don't like that. Want to keep these guys separate. I think that's the way we try to hunt for a little bit of upside in a really up-tempo, bad defensive matchup for the Miami Heat facing the Washington Wizards. TJ, anybody from the Wizards that you would like to discuss? I have a couple guys I want to talk about.
I think like Kispert's is another one of those guys with how cheap he is that he kind of fits in the Richardson and Gallinari pool for me, but it's fine. I don't really think I need to go there though. I don't mind Kuzma's price. I think he's somewhat in play, but for full disclosure, I'm playing 150 max and I'm doing a 20 entry max contest as well. And I have no Wizards in any of those lineups.
Gotcha. I think for me on the Wizards, I do have interest in Daniel Gafford. And yes, this may not be the best matchup for him, but at 5,900, he's got 40-point upside, TJ. And if he gets the minutes, I think the minutes should increase slightly with Bagley not suiting up. Another guy that I think could be in play here is Bilal Coulibaly. Like if he gets some extra minutes.
Yeah, that's the other guy I was thinking of that I forgot to mention too.
Yeah, I think he could be in play here. 228 total, not the highest in the world. And that should tell you how slow of a pace and let's say better defensively in terms of team defense the Miami Heat are versus the Washington Wizards, because the Wizards are playing at one of the highest paces in the league, and we're still only getting a 228 total. And we're saying only in the year of 2024. 228 is still a nice total, but not as high as some of the others we're going to see that are 10, 11, 12 points more than this particular total. So I think we're good there with Miami or Washington. Folks, if you have any questions or anything like that, please put them in the chat. Want to know about our favorite food? Want to know our favorite hobby? Want to know our favorite movie? Throw that in the chat. Feels like we're moving at a pretty good pace here. It's just 5:22 Eastern time. We're already through 2 games. So for those of you that like to feel like we've avoided shenanigans, I think we've come in hot here, right? And we're going to leave time for shenanigans in the middle of the show. And then we'll give out some freebies. We'll bring in crunch time, and we'll be out of here. That's how this show is going to progress today. TJ, Phoenix, Atlanta. We're out of the 7 o'clock block. We're now into the 7:30 block. We've got 2 games into the 7:30 block. Phoenix, Atlanta, 249 total. Phoenix -3.5 on the road. We've got Devin Booker. We've got Bradley Beal. We've got Kevin Durant. The big 3 from the Phoenix Suns taking on an Atlanta Hawks team that plays at an incredible pace and also plays no defense, little to no defense, if you will, TJ. 249 total, very robust. How are we feeling about the big three from Phoenix? And then are there any other players we want to filter in for this dynamic game?
The 7:30 block really is where things pick up in a big way. These two games, I think, are two of the most important games on the slate. On the Phoenix side of things, it's really, I don't know which, none of us know which Phoenix player it's going to be today. Bradley Beal could get hot from three. Kevin Durant could put up 70 fantasy points, maybe. Devin Booker has been the guy putting up 60-plus fantasy points in most of these games. All three of them are very much in play. And then I also really love Yusuf Nurkic at incredibly low projected ownership in tournaments. Those four guys are going to be the only four I'm sticking with, but I do want to have a lot of each of them. I'll probably be trying to get at least 20% of each of those Phoenix players today. And then on the Atlanta side of things, I'll probably even set a rule in lineup HQ that I want to have one Phoenix player in each lineup. Because I really do think one of these guys is going to be absolutely going off. Maybe not set that rule just because I do want to get as much of this next game as possible too, but it's a rule I'm considering. On the Atlanta side of things, it's really mostly just as run backs I'm interested in. And the two guys whose prices stand out are Trae Young at 9,600. I think he's still got a very big ceiling there. If he gets hot, maybe he's pissed off he didn't get picked to the All-Star team and he's going to shoot 30 shots. Who knows? And then the other guy is Clint Capella he doesn't play a ton of minutes, but at 5,700, Yusuf Nurkic is a big body. He could maybe get a few extra minutes, and I like Capella there at 5,700 as well.
That is fantastic, TJ. One of the things that I like about this game is the pace. I'm not thrilled about Booker's price for what it's worth on DraftKings at 9,900. I actually really like Bradley Beal in this spot at 6,500. We've seen him have a game or two where he's taking 20 shots. And if something like that happens tonight, we could really see some upside. I'm probably leaning, and looks like the field is as well, TJ. They're going to be leaning a little bit more Bradley Beal, a little bit more Kevin Durant than Devin Booker, but that's okay. If Devin Booker's my last guy in, I am not going to feel bad. Like, that's not something I'm going to go, I don't really want to play Devin Booker. But I do think at his price, we have slightly better options just in general across the board. Not like he's a bad play. I just think there's some 8K guys and other guys that are a little bit cheaper than him in the 9K range that we can also play. Kevin Durant being one of them. So, but even still, I love this spot for the Phoenix Suns. As we move to the Atlanta side, I'm not as thrilled about Atlanta. Like, I like Trae Young. I think he'll be fine. I like DeJounte Murray. I think he'll be fine. Jalen Johnson is probably my favorite tournament play at 7,400. He's a guy that's got 40-point upside, 40 or 50-point upside that they're not quite pricing up a lot. So I like the options we have there. And Clint Capella's at 5,700, Not really playing 30 minutes, but he has been producing in those 25 to 28 minutes. So I like him as well. So for me, I think on this team, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Jalen Johnson, Clint Capella, I think those are the main pieces. If I had to rank them personally, I think I'm going Jalen, Trae, DeJounte Capella for what it's worth. I think that's where I'm going. Oh, you come on in. My wife's bringing me some water, folks. I usually have my water cup in there. She's so freaking amazing. Thank you. All right. Love you. Talk to you later. All right. Here we go. She's bringing that water in here because I got to keep that going during the show, man. Don't want that palate to dry out. TJ, how are you feeling about the Atlanta Hawks?
The water is such a great call because it's a lot of people don't realize the Grinders Live is a long show, and so Chief's doing an amazing job. It can be a grind, and so Dean does such an incredible job each and every week, and Chief is crushing it, filling in. When I realized that I just got to be the analyst and not the host, I was so happy. And so shout out to Chief stepping in, doing this, and shout out to Dean doing this each and every day because it does require a great flow to be able to either stretch out 4 games or to make 10 games time right. It's a tough task. So you got to get the water in there. And shout out to Chief and Dean. Were we on to Sacramento and Indiana? I got confused. I confused myself because I wanted to get the shout out.
No, we were still talking about Atlanta. If you had some players from Atlanta that
yeah. So my ranking would be, I would probably actually go Clint Capella 1, just because of that cheap $5,700 price tag. Trae Young 2, Jalen Johnson 3. I don't think I'm going to get to DeJounte, but I do really like those 3.
Yeah, there we go. And now, and look, we're at our first 7:30 game. We've already covered 3 games. I think we're doing fairly well here. TJ, I do have a question for you. This might be our poll of the day. Let's go poll of the day on this one. Water, TJ, Aquafina, Dasani, Smart Water, or one of the others like Evian, Fiji, something like that. Right? They've got another water out there now called Eternal. That's another one. And then they've also got what's the water in the can? What is it called?
Coconut water?
What's that?
Is it just coconut water? I didn't know they made
No. I think it's called Liquid Death.
Yeah, Liquid Death. Liquid Death is the one in the can. So let's maybe get that and see how we're feeling about it. Our good friend John Brockmeyer and David Correa saying, from the tap, give me that tap water, tap that liquid. There we go. Essentia coming in hot from Bobby Gomes. Chai is saying, or Shy is saying, gotta be spring water. I like spring water. Spring water is good. I'm just wondering what people drink. My go-to when I'm on the road, like if I'm going out of town, my go-to is Smart Water. Smart Water is kind of smooth. Smart Water is a little bit of smooth, so that's a little bit smooth. So that's my go-to when I've got to stop by the convenience store and grab me a little something to quench my thirst. And let's do bath water coming in hot from Hammer. If you like drinking bath water, my friend, God bless you. Hose water, elite as a kid, Derek. You are true. That is true, sir. Hose water definitely used to hit real hard, especially when you don't have, especially when you're holding that thing to the side. Who is that? Derek knows what I'm talking about, right? You're holding that thing to the side and it's coming out and it's flowing out. You're just like, you hear that sound? That's what you got. Oh, man. Hose water as a kid. Incredible, Derek. Incredible. So yeah, there we have it. TJ, did you say what's your favorite expression for high quality H2O? What's your favorite high quality H2O?
H2O, good. We're getting there with a Waterboy reference on the shout out to Happy
Brandon,
Gilmore
stop
as
it.
well.
Brandon, stop.
Shout out to I am trying to give a heartfelt call out too, because obviously Waterboy made me think of Happy Gilmore. Carl Weathers passed away today. Rest in peace to a absolute all-time actor, Apollo Creed from Happy Gilmore, The Mandalorian, so many great things. A lot of people don't really remember that he was also an NFL linebacker at one point. But for water, it's the answer in bottled water. Yeah, the answer is anything but Dasani and Aquafina. They're both just terrible. You get thirstier drinking them. They dry out your mouth. Smart Water, Fiji, Evian, anything like that. It's all good. Tap, all good with that as well. I'm very blessed to live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where there's some of the cleanest tap water in the world. So I'm good taking a tap. And then if I do have a choice, something like a gas station stop, vitamin water, always my go-to. That's I like a little flavor.
I think we've talked about that. My son is a big vitamin water guy. Dragon fruit, it's his favorite. I'm typically more into the citrus ones. And since we're on sports drinks, I've got one more poll here. And not necessarily a poll, but one more comparison. TJ, Gatorade, Powerade, or Body Armor? Those 3. Gatorade, Powerade, Body Armor. What's your go-to?
So I haven't actually had the luxury of trying Body Armor yet. It's so expensive here in Canada. Every time I try and grab it, it's like $3-4 a bottle, and so I just don't ever get it. I get something
TJ,
else.
all that tournament, folks. TJ's out here selling you. Listen to this crap. TJ's selling you. Listen to this. He's saying, "Oh my goodness, This is worse
I
than
can
me.
get
No,
if
no,
I
no,
go to the store. Look, look. I go to the store. I go to the store and I can get a 12-pack of vitamin waters, which are my favorite, for $20. And but a 12-pack of body armor is like $38.99. I'm just gonna pick the one that's almost half price that I love.
No, folks. Now TJ is out here winning MMA, NHL, MLB's coming up. He's won some showdown. He's out here hitting props. This man is out here touting his butt off, and then he's saying, I don't want to buy a $4 bottle of body armor just to live a little and try it. TJ, I'm not letting that slide. Sir, get out there and try at least one bottle of body. Just one. We're not telling you to buy. So see, here's how TJ tried to set this up to make me feel bad. I can get vitamin water for $20 for 12. But if I do that same thing for body armor, I'm spending $38 when we're asking, did he try it? You mean to tell me TJ can't afford a $4 bottle? TJ, that's
I can. I just didn't know I was supposed to. So now I will. I'll go get a shot.
Yes, try it. All we're saying is try it out.
Oh,
that's
I will for sure. I will for sure. The one thing, I actually have like a very strong stand on Gatorade versus Powerade. If you're just chilling, or even if you're you're just needing something to like taste good, hot summer day, like something that's gonna like quench your thirst and taste good. Yeah. Powerade better. It has a little more sugar, and it just tastes a little bit better, I find. Gatorade, on the other hand, it does have a lot more salt in it, and it is far more effective for when you're actually playing sports. You're playing a basketball game, you're going for a run, whatever it is, you're going to the gym. A Gatorade actually quenches that thirst far superior than a Powerade. But I do find if I just need like a cold drink, Powerade does taste better. Okay. And my opinion on this, folks, is this. Firstly, tell TJ to pull out that wallet, live a little, and spend $4 for one of the best drinks of his life. I do like, so here's what I will say, and I agree with you. When I've played sports, TJ, Gatorade does something to me, like it just makes me feel like I'm on top of the earth. When I sip that Gatorade, drink that Gatorade after I've been involved in physical activity. Not really big on Powerade after physical activity. But if I'm going to drink a sports drink outside of the confines of physical activity, Body Armor does it for me, man. My favorites, Blackout Berry, Fruit Punch, Citrus Mango. They've got one now, Cherry Lime. Those are so good. So I love Body Armor just to drink regularly. If I'm in the midst of physical activity, definitely got to be Gatorade. I'm going to sit on that. Folks, we've just learned that our good friend TJ Zwarts is a cheapskate. All right, Sacramento versus Indiana, 7:30 game. This one is another interesting one. TJ's not a cheapskate. That's just a joke. TJ knows that. This is another very interesting game as we look at this team. Not really anybody that's planning to sit on the Sacramento side of importance, TJ. On the Indiana side, though, we've got Tyrese Halliburton, who's questionable. Benedict Mathurin, questionable. Jalen Smith, questionable. Miles Turner, questionable. Perhaps some news has come out. What I'm still in the 4:30 report. Let me get to the 5:30 report. But those guys are questionable. Perhaps we get that news before lock, TJ. We'd love to get that news before lock because that would help us make some incredible decisions. Looks like on the 5:30 report, every one of those people that we named are still questionable. TJ, how are you feeling about this game? Let's talk about it. This is my favorite game on the slate. Obviously, with all these questionables, it could drastically change, but I think I always know it's going to be my favorite. If, say, everybody is in, Tyrese Halliburton with that minutes limit, I still don't think I can get there unless we get news that it's going to be bumped up to even like 30. I think I'd be willing to take a shot at 9,300 going against his old team. Even like 28, I think I'd maybe be willing to take a shot, but it's a back-to-back and he hasn't played more than 22 minutes yet, so I can't really expect him to do much more than that. And so with that being said, I'm not planning on playing him. If he happens to be out on the second half of a back-to-back, well, I'll probably have Nembhard or TJ McConnell in every single lineup that I play. I really like Miles Turner as long as he's in at 6,100. I think he's probably going to have to play as many minutes as he can to handle Domantas Sabonis today. Neesmith at 5,700, I think is good value. Buddy Hield, especially if Benedict Mathurin is out, I think is good value going up against his whole team. And then the Sacramento side, that's really where all of a sudden we are cooking. Sabonis is my favorite spend up on the slate. De'Aaron Fox is my favorite low-owned spend up on the slate. It's Indiana. It's a 4-point spread. You can't get a better situation than this, and De'Aaron Fox is projected for less than 1% ownership. Doesn't make much sense to me. I absolutely love it. Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, I'll play all of them. Don't really love Huerter and Barnes at the ownership that they're projecting for right now, both like 15 to 30%. I would rather just play Keegan Murray and Malik Monk, both at less than 5% projected ownership.
Yeah, love that call. And I will say this, David Correa posted something in the chat that I think is very important. And I think this will become more important as we get down the stretch, start progressing to the end of the season. Here's what he says. He's playing $41 million is on the line. Now, I'm not sure how much you guys know about the new collective bargaining agreement from the NBA, National Basketball Players Association, but there is big money on the line for Tyrese Halliburton to make the 65-game mark. Now, I think last I checked, I think he missed maybe 10 games. And I got to look at that. I did look at it last night. But if he can make the All-Star team and do all these other things and complete the 65 games, then first of all, let me say this. He's still making big money. His contract, he's still already on the extension for next season for 5 years, $204.5 million. So let's put it into context. He's still going to make over $200 million, right? However,
more.
What's that?
More.
Yeah. $204 million, $204.5 million. He's still going to make that on the 5-year contract. But if he can complete the 65 games, and then this is the other kicker, they consider you playing a full game if you play at least 20 minutes. And that's what David is talking about there, which is why if you go back and you remember what they did with those Brooklyn guys, you remember that with Bridges?
Yeah.
Bridges got his 20 minutes so he could keep that streak going. He's got to play at least 20 minutes. So this is why they're trying to get him to play games, even though I don't think he's all the way healthy. They can get him past the 20-minute mark in some of these games. That's going to help him achieve that max salary. So that is important to know. That David, thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that I think I will be including in my process for guys that are on the fringe. Now, a guy like Joel Embiid, sucks for him. He's legitimately hurt. He's not going to win MVP. Have torn meniscus, nothing he can do, man. So Joel Embiid, you're sorry, man. He's having a season for the ages, playing really well, but he's legitimately hurt. Nothing they can do in terms of season ending or season awards. So that is something that's going to come into play there. So I will say this: if he plays, one of the guys that I do like, and Mr. George, we will repeat that giveaway, sir. No problem at all. One of the guys that I do like in this game that we've seen pick up minutes is Aaron Nesmith, TJ. He started to pick up minutes, and so he's a guy that I like. If he's going to be playing 35 minutes, shout out to Aaron Nesmith, played down here in South Carolina at one of our local high schools. If he's going to be playing big minutes, I really like him, TJ. We've seen the production coincide with the minutes bump. So, and I know some of those games they had some guys out, some were in, but if they can keep him consistent in that range, he is a guy that I like. Any thoughts on Indiana? You've talked about Sacramento, and the guys you like from Sacramento I like as well. I will probably throw Kevin Huerter in there because they seem to be playing him big minutes now, around 35 to 40 minutes a game. But that's the only person I will add for Sacramento. Indiana, you heard who I like. How are you feeling about that, TJ?
Yeah, so it's like unless we get a word on an increase on Halliburton's minutes, he's actually feeling better. We're going to let him go out there for a little bit more than 21, 22. He's cheap enough that I would take a shot, but at the low 20 minutes, not going to do it. And then it's basically just Nesmith, Buddy Hield, Miles Turner as the main guys I'm looking to go with. If who's the Benedict Mathurin, if he's out, then we're going to be, then I really want to load up on Buddy Hield against his old team.
Yes. And J3, good to see you, brother. I'm so glad you made it in. We didn't want you to be grieving, which I know you may have been, our illustrious, big time host of Grinders Live for, like I said, what feels like going on a decade now. Dean Chambers is not here, but Dean will be back. J3, thank you for continuing to support the show, despite the fact that your favorite host is not in the building. It looks like Steve took care of Mr. George in terms of the free giveaway. Conscious Machine, and I am monitoring the chat today because I've got to do the hosting, so that's why I'm really on top of these comments. Conscious Machine 413 might have the best one of all. What is your favorite water? He's a little bit behind. He says holy water. Conscious Machine, that's a good one. We're going to throw that one into the pool. Here we go. We've made it out of the 7:30 block. TJ, we've got 5 games. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 games at 8 o'clock. We've already made it through half of the slate. So I think we're on a fantastic pace. Once again, folks, go in the live stream chat. Make sure you hit the RG logo to participate in our giveaway. We want to show our support to the listeners, to the viewers, to the supporters, to the grinders, to the guys that are trying to play every day, every weekend, day in and day out. If you've been hanging out with us for NBA, TJ, since October, you've been in a grind. We're in February. That's 5 months. For those of you that haven't been thinking about it, you've been hanging out with us for 5 months. If you don't have premium, get in there. We want to help you. We want to show you the tools so you can make a decision that, you know what, folks? This is a good thing RG's got going here. I want to be a part of the premium family. Go ahead and try it out and hope that when we spin that wheel, your name comes up. Here we go. We're in the 8 o'clock block, TJ. Orlando Magic, Minnesota Timberwolves. I probably should have just saved this game for the last game. I don't know how much we're going to talk about this one in particular. I do have 2 to 3 players that I like. I do think if some news breaks our way, TJ, that this could be a game that we're a little bit more interested in than we would have been because of the injury news. Here's the injury news. Gary Harris is available tonight. Nothing's really going on with Orlando. That team is healthy. They got thousands of bodies. Minnesota Timberwolves, though. Rudy Gobert popped up on the injury report. Questionable. TJ, this is big news for this slate because if Rudy Gobert sits, I think we're going to start to gravitate towards a mid or low 8K player on DraftKings in Karl Anthony Towns. Now, that's my read. I think Karl Anthony Towns would be in big-time consideration. I also think Naz Reid may creep into the discussion as a value play at 4,400. I also think that might open it up for a guy like Wendell Carter Jr. to have a slightly easier matchup. We know that Karl Anthony Towns is going to be playing Olay defense, Matador defense. He's not trying to get mixed up in real defense, folks. He wants to score. He wants to be out there, but defense is not his calling card. It's on the offensive end. That could open it up for 5,700 Wendell Carter Jr. to do some damage tonight that we otherwise may not have seen with Gobert there to pick up a few more rebounds, pick up a few blocks, and have a little bit more rim protection. I'll be quiet. 213 total. Minnesota minus 6.5. TJ, how are you feeling about this game that we probably wouldn't have played outside of the injury news?
I didn't even think of the Wendell Carter Jr. if Gobert was out, so I really like that call. I think that's a great idea for tournaments. Going to come in super low owned, and nobody's going to think to go there. Minnesota was not near one of the best defensive teams in the league without Gobert, and while he's not the only reason, he's the biggest reason. So I love that call to go to Wendell Carter Jr. On the Minnesota side of things, if Gobert's in, this is a full X out the whole game for me if Gobert's in. If Gobert's in, I'm not playing anyone from either of these teams. If Gobert is out, Karl Anthony Towns and Naz Reid are the two guys I'm going to be looking to go with. And I think I'd actually prefer to go with Naz Reid at 4,400 as opposed to Towns at 83. Reid may step in the starting lineup, or They could very easily just put Towns to the center position. Either way, even if they're not playing together, I do still like very much. I do still like Naz Reid today at $4,400 if Gobert's out.
For sure. And I think that's slightly big news on this slate for a game that we may not have gotten involved in otherwise. Gobert, if he happens to sit, I think that's pretty big news. I think it's going to open up, a slightly different defensive scheme for the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Orlando Magic. So that's where I'm at on that game. I will say this. I do slightly like Markelle Fultz in this game at 5K because the minutes have picked up. So, we've seen him show a little bit of upside, but we've also seen the minutes increase, TJ. So 30, look, all minutes aren't created equal. 30 minutes against the Spurs is not 30 minutes against the Timberwolves, but I get it. But he also played 27 minutes against Phoenix. So we've seen some flashes of upside. The flashing lights. Hey. All right. So I've seen a little bit of upside, a little bit of flash from Markelle Fultz. Let's see what we get tonight at 5K. I don't hate it. But Wendell Carter Jr. would absolutely probably be my favorite play. And I do think Franz Wagner is a little bit too cheap. And so that's more of a price play at $6,900. Once again, that is just if Gobert is out. Yes, I'm glad you caught that, Steve. I combined two songs. Amazing, right? It's only because I said upside and flashing, and we want to do the same thing. And listen, TJ, if you guys have a question, just ask me. I'm a music aficionado. I love music. I play music. So that's my thing, right? I could be a DJ. Nothing near the status of DJ Khaled, right? Nothing near that status. We know DJ Khaled.
DJ Chief.
No. We got to come up with something else, man. Come up with something else. Khaled's on another level, right? Like he's like GOAT status. I'm nowhere near another one. Right. I'm nowhere near the status of DJ Khaled, but I'm more of a musician than a producer. I can produce, don't get me wrong, but I'm more the guy you say, hey, man, I need you to lay some stuff down over some tracks. I'm your guy. Call me up, and we good. We the best. Carolina guy. That's another DJ Khaled quote. Interesting. Okay, here we go. Interesting fact. Our producer, Steve, was a DJ in college. Wow, that's interesting. So there's an NBA player. I'm not sure how you got. So Magic Johnson is one of my favorite players in terms of NBA history. By the way, he's one of my favorite players. He was a DJ in college, and his name was EJ the DJ. That was his name in college when he was at Michigan State. So very cool that we have people that connect the music. Bobby Gold said, need Chiefs mixtape. So Bobby, funny story, Bobby, funny story. So when I was a kid, my parents weren't really big on like rap music. And mind you, remember, I grew up in South Carolina. So I grew up in the South where, Ludacris would have been, a down South rapper. T.I. For those of you that are in like the deep Southeast, like South Carolina, Georgia, a guy named Pastor Troy, even though this guy isn't from like South Carolina, Georgia, he's down in Florida, obviously. Rick Ross, right, was a little popular. Tech Camouflage, gotcha. David Banner was popping at one time. The Yin Yang Twins, like those are guys like when I was, around. Of course, we heard Birdman, Pastor, all those people, right? So those were guys that were around when I was, kind of listening to what I call Dirty South. Of course, Outkast, but I'm saying Outkast isn't really like a true rap group. Outkast just had good music. So I'm talking about like rapping, right? My parents weren't really big on rap music. And so I remember one time my mom, it's so funny. I had an E40 tape. Now remember, and I'm saying that because I'm on the South. E40 was more on the West Coast out in the Bay Area. So I've got this E40 tape. And my mom,
Miles Turner just got ruled out.
Well, we already knew that was coming. I'll come back to that. That's big news at 5:52. That's big news. So, he said bad Outkast take. Tony, like Outkast they built their reputation on good music, not just rap. Like, I think you're missing my point here. What I'm talking about is like down south, or what they call dirty south, like rap, like hardcore rap music, not like Outkast, who had like
the music your parents don't want you to listen to.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they found this E40 tape, and I guess they popped it in, and my mom said, "I don't want you to listen to this garbage." Oh, so hilarious. That's a good one from my childhood. Let's go back and revisit this Pacers-Sacramento game since we've got some time here, TJ. We've got Miles Turner, who's out. I think that's big news. How do we feel about how they're going to handle this particular scenario? Because now I feel like Sabonis is, wow, he's just going to – I already like Sabonis, but I think he's going to crush. TJ, I'll hand it over to you. Miles Turner being out, that's big news.
I just put a big same game parlay in at 500-1 odds on that game. I adjusted it because my last one was also from that game, and it had Miles Turner in the parlay, and so I had to take it out because it'll just get refunded now. But we're up to 64 likes. I said if we get 75, I will let it go. I'll unleash it to the people. So make sure you hit that like button. And yeah, we like this game even more now because we thought Domantas Sabonis was going to smash. Well, guess what? Now he's playing without Miles Turner, the one really good defensive player on Indiana. And so Sabonis should absolutely go off. And on the Indiana side of things, well, Jalen Smith is also still questionable. If he's in and he starts, he's a smash play. I think Siakam becomes more interesting because he's going to get extended minutes now. And Isaiah Jackson at 3,300, like that might be the smash play of the slate now. Like we might have to, if Isaiah Jackson starts, you play him in all, like if you're playing 150, you play him in all 150.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I definitely think, that's something we can look at. I think this spot comes in very favorably now because of the situation, right? Because of the situation. Miles Turner sitting is a big deal for a game we already like. And that's what I think I want to drive home, TJ. This was a game we already liked. Steve, we can let it ride right here. Folks, you see that? This is how Domantas Sabonis feels looking at this Indiana Pacers team with no Miles Turner tonight. Birdman is in the building. What happened to that boy? He is in the building. He's saying, folks, I am getting ready to eat this Pacers team alive. Little bit of revenge, if you will. Basically built his career in Indiana as a really good player, and now he gets to have his revenge. Love Domantas Sabonis. He's probably one of the top big spins on the slate. Here we go. We got about 5 minutes, folks. We got about 5 minutes before we get to the top of the hour, where we can give you a free week of RG Premium. We're going to keep this thing along. We're going to our next 8 o'clock game. This is the game where I really like someone here, TJ, and I'm going to talk about it. It's the Pelicans. It's the Spurs. 233.5 total. Pelicans favorite by 8. When we look at the injury report for the San Antonio Spurs, we don't have a whole lot of big names out outside of Keldon Johnson, who will not be suiting up tonight. He will not be playing. So that's going to open it up because if you looked at the projections earlier today, you noticed that Jetty Osman was popping, and he's probably going to continue to pop. I'm not huge on Jetty. I do think Jetty's fine, right? But he will be popping now because we anticipate, or we know that Keldon Johnson is out. On the other side, we have some other big news, TJ. Zion Williamson is questionable. Larry Nance is questionable. This is another spot for really big news. If Nance sits, if Zion sits, Herbert Jones, also questionable. If we get those 3 guys out, we're going to get our good friend, Mr. Low Minutes Valanciunas, playing 30 to 35 minutes. That's going to open it up for him to have some massive upside, even against the unicorn, the difference maker, Victor Wembanyama himself on the other side. I really like this spot. I like this game. If we get the injuries to fall in our favor, TJ, this game, even at a 22-33.5 total, could be incredible. How are you feeling about New Orleans? How are you feeling about the Spurs? Let's hear it.
Yeah, it really does depend so much on injury news. I believe both Zion and Herb Jones were present at shoot-around this morning. I'm not sure about Larry Nance. If all these guys are in for the Pelicans, it's such a great matchup. I don't want to avoid them by any means, but it's tough to play many more than one. It's kind of like a Miami situation at the beginning. And so like Ingram, Williamson, McCollum, they all have totally reasonable prices. And I'm willing to get there, but I don't really want to play much of them together. Trey Murphy, I think, is somewhat interesting. And then Larry Nance, if he plays, I think is an interesting salary saver. If he's out, then maybe we could take some shots on Jonas Valanciunas. JV at 6,400, I definitely think would have upside with if Nance happens to be out. But I also think we can maybe even start taking some shots then on like Najee Marshall, just thinking maybe they go small. Don't know if you need it on a 10-game slate, but it's San Antonio. They're very easy to score against. And then on the Spurs side of things, most of them I'm pretty interested in. Like without Keldon there, I think it opens up more minutes for Sohan. It opens up more minutes for Chetty. Opens more minutes up for Champagny. None of them, outside of maybe Chetty, I think are great plays, but Chetty's also going to be far higher owned than the other two, and I easily could see the other two happen to have the better game. Trey Jones is in play. Devin Vassell is probably my favorite of the group mentioned so far for tournaments, and then Wemby is always the best play from the Spurs.
Yeah, man. I like Victor Wembanyama today. He's kind of my guy in tournaments, TJ, that I want to get a little bit overweight on just because the slate is a little bit larger than usual. And as a result, we're not getting a whole lot of Wemby tonight. But even at 9,300 and him playing 30 minutes, TJ, we've seen him, hear what I'm saying, not what I'm not saying, pretty much be an automatic 50. And there's more meat on the bone for upside if he can even score a few more extra points. So he's doing this, TJ, scored 20 points, 10 rebounds. He's still putting up 50, right? So if we can get him to score 5 to 6 more real points, the one night he scores 30 points, he's probably going for 60, 70. So really love that. And at this time, my good friends, we may come back and revisit this as we get information about this game if it comes before crunch time. Our illustrious producer, Steve Hoffman, is coming in. We're going to spin the wheel. We've got 2 winners that will win 1 free week of RG Premium. Earlier, I know you heard 1 winner for 2 weeks. That's not it. It's 2 winners for 1 week of RG Premium. We got Kirkwood in the building, and I know somebody mentioned Master P. You can't mention Master P without naming Mystical. Go look it up. TJ, let's hit that wheel. Let's see what winner. What's your color for the day, TJ? What's your color for today?
I got green.
All right. I'm going blue.
I got red.
Steve. All right.
Oh, is that Soda Kid? Soda Kid 80, our first RG Premium winner for the week.
All right, we're going to remove him now because he won. Shuffle it up.
Yep. No whammies. No. So Hammer watches, what's the name of that show? Oh, I can't remember. D Pipe 04. He is our next winner.
Congratulations, guys. I'll shoot you a message in the Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. Congrats, folks. So glad you're able to get in on that free week of RG Premium. Make the best of it. Go out and take down a tournament while you're at it. Tag us on social media. We appreciate it when you let us know that our tools helped you to put together winning lineups. We're moving right along. TJ, Golden State, Memphis. This is another interesting spot on the night. I'll tell you why. Steve Spurr looks like he's trying to be committed to playing the young guys, TJ. Let's hope that stays on pace. Now, Draymond Green was, I think, questionable earlier, but he is probable now. Obviously, we've got the same guys that are continuing to sit out. along with Dario Saric. Memphis has a laundry list of players that are continuing to sit. We already know about all of the big names, so I won't name those. Luke Kennard is still questionable at the time of this show. And Derrick Rose is still questionable. Xavier Tillman is doubtful, so we're assuming he's not going to play. TJ, I do like this game because I do think there's some pieces we can look at. How are you feeling about the Warriors, the Grizzlies? Over to you.
I want to just be able to ignore Memphis completely. Like, I really, really would love to just be able to X the whole team out. But if Kennard and Rose are out, it gets a little bit tougher. You know, Scottie Pippen Jr. maybe gets a little more interesting. As it stands, like, I still, like, I want to think I'd want to play the Gregory Jacksons, the David Roddies, based on how many guys are out, but they've just all been priced up. I guess Jaren Jackson Jr. is fine, but Santi Aldama is the only guy on Memphis that I actually look at and be like, yeah, I want to play him.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way you do about Memphis, but I am going to point this out. Our good friend Kid Yahoo is in the building. Chris Kurt Dees by trade. I want to mention an alternate site that's still giving us tremendous value on these Memphis players. If you're over at Owner's Box, we're getting crazy value on Scottie Pippen Jr., Vince Williams, Roddy, those guys. If you're over there, that's a good place to attack those value plays. On the Golden State Warriors side, what I did want to point out is Jonathan Kuminga, and I don't think that's necessarily a secret because we do have his ownership up in the 20s today, TJ. But I wanted to point out that it seems to me like Steve Kerr is finally having a commitment to minutes for Jonathan Kuminga. Earlier this season, we thought there was going to be a commitment to minutes, and there just was not, right? He's 20 minutes today, 18 minutes the next day, 25 minutes, 13 minutes. It's all over the place. And now what we're seeing is Jonathan Kuminga getting 30 to 35 minutes, right? So I think that's very interesting. Even at 6,200, I don't hate it. Now, it's not as good when he was 5,500, 5,200. Like, we get that. But if he's going to be putting up 40 fantasy point performances, TJ, 6,200 is still a little bit too cheap. And so while we can't predict the future, we don't know, hey, is this going to happen? We're saying it's a possibility in this spot. So I definitely like Jonathan Kuminga at 6,200. And so I think he's a really fine play for tonight's slate. How are we feeling about Golden State?
Kuminga would be my favorite play from Golden State as well. I think in a very similar price range, Draymond Green and Klay Thompson are both viable as well. These are both guys that, while they definitely have shown with their age some low floors, the ceiling's still there. They both put up 50-plus point games recently. So I think they're both still in play. Steph Curry at 9,400, the ceiling is still there with him. Maybe I make a rule that if I play Jaren Jackson Jr. today, I'm going to make sure that Steph or Draymond or Klay Kuminga, 1 to 2 of them are in the same lineup. But I also really like Brandon Podziemski for tournaments. He's projected for 27 minutes, and because his fantasy point projection is not that high, he's getting no projected ownership. Played 36 minutes last game, 27 before, getting consistently like at least 26 minutes. I do think that ceiling there is there, especially in a game against Memphis where they're favored by 8.5 points. If they happen to run away with this one a little bit, Podziemski could get even more run.
Let me just say and shout out my fellow South Carolinian, Mr. Daryl George. See, I don't know if he knew where I was from. Is in Florence or from Florence. He may not live in Florence. I want to be specific here. He didn't say he still lives there. He said he's from Florence, so he could live somewhere else. I am also from South Carolina, and I live in Charleston. So, shout out to Mr. George, fellow South Carolinian in the building. Here we go. I think that wraps up Golden State, Memphis. Once again, we're still waiting on that news for the Memphis guys. I think Luke Kennard and Derrick Rose, like if those guys are out, that definitely opens it up for Scottie Pippen and some of these other guys. Scottie Pippen Jr., and some of those other guys. But if Luke Kennard is in, Derrick Rose is in, obviously that impacts their output, and I think we will leave those guys on the shelf. TJ, here we go. Moving right along. This is a big game. This is Chiefs team. This is my favorite team. Charlotte Hornets, OKC Thunder, 225 total. OKC minus 15.5, facing this bottom of the barrel Hornets team. Let's go to the injury report. Who's out for the Hornets? It needs to be everybody. They just need to forfeit. That's how bad this team is. But officially, on the injury report, LaMelo Ball is doubtful. Gordon Hayward is out. Mark Williams is out. On the OKC side, not a lot of bodies out, but Isaiah Joe is out and Jalen Williams is out. Now, TJ, before we get started, I want to point this out because I wrote this up today, so I know a lot about what's going on with SGA. SGA is one of the top plays on the slate, period. Now, he is getting ownership, but TJ, I looked this up for the article that I was writing. With Jalen Williams off the floor, SGA is seeing a 5% usage bump. It brings him up to 38% and some change. He's already averaging a bit over 31 points a game. He's already contributing in the peripheral stats this season. He's giving you rebounds. He's giving you assists. And then on top of that, he's giving you 30 plus almost every game. And tonight, the Charlotte Hornets are coming to town to play no defense and hope that the ball goes through the hoop enough to compete. How are we feeling? Let's start with OKC. We'll move our way back to Charlotte. How do you feel about SGA? I think he's one of the top plays on the slate. Hands down, I think Chet Holmgren has a real shot at real upside tonight as the Charlotte Hornets can't stop anyone inside. It's terrible. This team is terrible. Trade everybody. Start back over. All right, that's my personal opinion on my favorite team. They're awful. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder have a good shot at some serious upside. I am hoping the Hornets can keep this close. TJ, over to you.
And the one guy on Charlotte who's left and still pretty good at basketball in the starting lineup is a terrible person. So that just makes things worse too. Get rid of all of them. It's like you said right at the end of your Chet Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander conversation. It's the last point that I think is the one worry, and it's that if this game can stay close, it's a 15.5 point spread. Now, we just saw yesterday a 15-point spread can end with that other team winning. The Lakers beat the Celtics yesterday, despite being 15-point underdogs. So it happens.
The Lakers aren't anywhere near as bad as the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah. And so I do worry about that.
That's like you telling me you can't afford a $4 body armor. It's just true.
I was making a point that sometimes big spreads get close. Stop trying to be Dean, Chief. We usually get along. Stop bringing your Dean out here. If this game stays close, SGA and Chet are going to absolutely smash. I think I like Giddey and Dort a lot regardless. Giddey and Dort, I think, are both great plays. Dort at only 3,900. He's going to play 30-plus minutes. I thought his projected ownership was actually going to be higher than like the 15% he's getting right now. But then I do think as well, you can take shots on some of these other guys if you're not playing SGA, if you're not playing Chet. You can go with some of these bench guys, whether it be Aaron Wiggins, whether it be Jalen Williams with an I. Hey, maybe you even want to play the point guard whose name I couldn't even begin to pronounce. Vasily Micic. Crazy, one of the craziest names spelled out I've ever seen. But I think you could even play him if you're projecting this one to be a blowout. Yeah, I like OKC quite a bit. I think you want to get exposure to them in some capacity, whether it's spending up for SGA, whether it's playing Chet, Giddey and Dort as salary savers, or playing these bench guys in a blowout. On Charlotte side of things, there is actually two players I'm somewhat interested in. It's Cody Martin and Nick Richards. Maybe I would be playing them just because they're cheap. So maybe I'd be playing them in lineups that have the SGA. Just kind of hoping like maybe they keep it somewhat close. And that's why SGA reaches his ceiling. And then those two get there as well. Brad Marshall in chat asking, do I like Dort better than Wiggins? Yes, I would. I would rather play Dort than Wiggins. J3 asking about Wiggins too. He's fine. He started the second half for Kenrich Williams last game. And so I actually do think we could potentially end up see him starting this one as well. But I just don't really know how big the ceiling is with Aaron Wiggins, sorry. And so I don't think he's some smash play by any means, but I don't think he's bad. And I actually could see him end up starting.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. I will say, in terms of the Hornets, I do like Cody Martin at 4,700 just because his role is somewhat expanded. If this game can stay reasonably competitive, I think he's okay. Brandon Miller, if you want to get really spicy, like he's 6,800. I think there are better 6K plays, but we have seen him flash some upside with LaMelo sitting. I'm out on Miles Bridges at 8,500. I'm still though. These are two teams that are terrible inside in terms of rebounding. I'm still in on Nick Richards at 5,800. Like, this is a game that double-digit rebounds could be falling his way. The Oklahoma City Thunder are not a great rebounding team. So I do like Nick Richards and don't hate PJ Washington. This is one of my game stacks or favorite games of the night, if you will, because of the fact that we've got value Hornets where we can take Martin, Richards, PJ, something like that, and play it on the other side of an SGA, a Dort, a Chet Holmgren. So I do really like this game. I'm going to go ahead and answer this question here from Flying Armbar. He said Cat versus Butler versus Bridges versus Jalen Johnson versus Kuminga for FanDuel. That's an interesting one. I guess it depends on the rest of your lineup.
If Gobert's out, I'd probably have Cat ranked 1. Then Jimmy Butler ranked 2. I don't know where the rest would go.
I still like Kuminga. I think Kuminga's like in that 7K range, 72, 73. I like him, but once again, I'm with you. If Gobert is out, Cat becomes a really, really strong play. All right, TJ, as we approach the crunch time crew, we are moving right along. I think we stayed on a really good pace here. Mr. George says that Charlotte scored over 90 points. I'm going to go with yes. They scored more than 90. We're moving really right along here to our last game of the night. I think we had a good pace there. It's the Toronto Raptors. It's the Houston Rockets. 232.5 total. Houston favored by 4.5. When we look at the injury report for the Toronto Raptors, RJ Barrett questionable. That's very important. Jonte Porter is out. Jakob Poeltl questionable. Very important. Emmanuel Quickley questionable. That's very important. And then on the Houston Rockets side, and that was the 5:30 report. Haven't quite made it to the 6:30 report. Alperen Sengun still questionable at the 5:30 report. So I think this game gives us a fair amount of news to attack or target in the last 8 o'clock game that we will be talking about, TJ. How are you feeling about this game? Let's maybe go through your thoughts with these guys in, thoughts with them out, and then we will hand this thing over to Squirrel, Taylor, and Roth.
So on the Raptors side of things, if everybody's in, I think I can just X their team out completely. I don't think I got to go there. If all of a sudden we start getting guys out, though, they transfer for me. They range from least interesting team on the slate to one of the very best teams on the slate. Because if we get Pirtle out, Quickly out, and Barrett out, Scotty Barnes becomes one of the better spend-ups. Bruce Brown is in play as a value. Dennis Schroeder is in play as a sub 6K guy who would rate out really well. Gary Trent as well. And then, like, honestly, you could maybe even look at guys like Chris Boucher, Jordan Nwora, and Thad Young, too, because Porter is already out. And Jordan Nwora played, when all these guys were out a couple games ago, he played 30 minutes and had almost 50 fantasy points. So while you're definitely not quite chasing that again, if all these guys are out, you can look to some of these bench guys like him and like a Chris Boucher at $3,200 since Porter's out, if we get Pirtle out, too. On the Houston side of things, a lot depends on Şengün. We're going to have a lot more interest in these guys if Şengün is out. If he's in, I think he's very much in play. If he's and then I would like still Jabari Smith. I don't think I need at all to go to Jalen Green because I would just way rather play Fred VanVleet at $100 more. Like Fred VanVleet at sub 7K. Sign me up. Like he's a great play on the slate going up against his old team. Toronto side of things, it really depends who's in, who's out. I love Toronto if we get Quickly Barrett and Pirtle out, and I'm not going to touch them if they're all in. If we happen to get something like just Pirtle's not quite back yet, he's not quite ready. Since Porter's already out, I do think And Boucher and Thad Young are very much in play.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that's the case if that happens. And we're going to close this thing out. We're going to cut it off. We're not going to do like Dean and continue to roll through analysis when the big time, one of the best tournament minds this generation, Taylor and Roth. We're going to hand this thing right over. Roth, Taylor, Squirrel, welcome. Roth, take it away.
Thank you. I assume when you said best tournament mind of the generation, you were referring to me. Is that?
We're referring to Roth because let me tell you something about Roth. This man would know exactly when JJ Barea was going to have a 50-point fantasy game every time.
That's true.
He'd be 6K, and Roth says, "Hey, it's JJ Barea day," and Roth, you would see him in the RG tournament taking it down.
That's true. That's also the last time I won a tournament was when JJ Barea was still playing, but that's besides the point. Good stuff as always, Chief and TJ. Thank you for hanging out with us. We are going to dive right into it. This is crunch time. We are joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got some talk about, can we get a Roth and Kirkwood one-on-one in a basketball game? I don't think you understand how good I am. Like, we're going to need like Roth versus Fred VanVleet. Like, then we can have a conversation here. Welcome to it, ladies and gents. So we got, or TJ, at least we're in TJ. TJ's a hooper. Two of the sharpest minds in the biz. You know the drill. It's crunch time. We're taking you up to lock. We're taking you through lock. We got Taylor in the house. What up, Taylor?
Not much. Glad to be back once again. Second straight night with you guys. So looking forward to hopping in.
Yeah, you sound just thrilled. You sound so enthused. That bringing that energy. We got Squirrel as well. What up, Squirrel?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's a little bit of a rough night. Like, it's a rough slate. We just have a bunch of injury news that we're not going to get, but it's a short slate too. Like the site's cut off the last game, so the 9 p.m. game is not there, but just a ton of injury news in like 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Ooh, okay. So even as we go through the analysis, we're gonna kind of have to preface things with like, if it breaks this way, then this. It's one of those shows.
Yep. Looks like Alfred Şengün is playing. So that's one of the pieces. I was thinking he was gonna play, so that solves a little bit of the puzzle. But we still got a bunch of like Toronto stuff, New Orleans stuff, Indiana. So
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Well, our goal here is to make sure that people win at the cash, make sure they win some tournaments as well. Squirrel, you can't win them all. You can't win every tournament, my guy. You got to spread the love a little bit. But let's start with an overview. I've seen Roth cross. So yeah, I mean, anybody can get it. Anybody can get it. Taylor, why don't we walk through what has happened and what we're waiting on? And maybe if you could give us like this is what we're waiting on and this is what we do, or this is why, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah. So the guys we're waiting on are plentiful. Like you said, Şengün's in, which is a big one. Zion's questionable. Gobert, Tyrese Halliburton, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Luke Kennard, Herb Jones, Jalen Smith, Larry Nance, all questionable. Many of these games don't start until 8 Eastern. So maybe we'll get it. Maybe we won't. Obviously, Zion is kind of one of the bigger ones, along with Gobert. The Toronto stuff's pretty big, too, because that's 3 guys that are questionable. They're already without Jonte Porter, so could be Thad Young night, which I'm sure is really exciting to everyone because it's 2013 all over again. But yeah, should be fun.
Okay, well, why don't we just start kind of walking through a FanDuel cash build? Give me your thoughts there.
I don't think Roth in his head thinks he could beat Meansy. I think he would openly brag that he could beat Meansy.
I was about to type that. Yeah, I saw that guy. Yeah, it's not in my head. I think I could take Meansy right now. The issue is like Meansy hasn't played in 20 years. Legitimately has not picked up a basketball in basically 20 years.
He hasn't played for Duke in 20 years.
That's true, but he literally just stopped playing after that. Like, he doesn't shoot anymore. The thing is, Meansy's also like 6'5" or 6'6", so he might just, if he wants to win and just back me down, he could. But that's besides the point. We gotta run through this slate here because there is a lot going on. So Taylor, what are we doing in a cash build?
In a cash build, starting with FanDuel, Luke Kennard expected to play. We just got, so there's one thing. Derrick Rose expected to play, another thing. Not a huge thing, but a thing. So point guard, Trey Jones looks like a reasonable value. 6,300 against the Pelicans. Keldon Johnson is out. There's more usage to go around for the rest of the Spurs. Kind of a good little mid-range value. Ditto for Mike Conley. That game environment, Minnesota, Orlando, is not appealing. I think it has the lowest total on the slate, but he's a good cash play. Solid per minute guy. The role should be there. A couple spendy options at the guard spots. Devin Booker and SGA. SGA looks like one of the better plays on the slate. Significantly cheaper on DK than he is on FanDuel, but still playable on FanDuel where we have the higher cap. OKC's in a great spot against Charlotte at home. Blowout concern, but OKC should be on the winning side of that, so he should be able to do some damage there. Bradley Beal looks like a pretty good cash play. Phoenix against Atlanta is one of the higher total games on the slate. Beal hasn't shown a very high floor on this team as the third option, but he's gotten cheaper and cheaper. 7,200 on DK or on FanDuel rather. Don't mind that in cash for either guard spot. Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, James Harden, all kind of fringe viable on FanDuel. The Rockets are better plays on DK. At shooting guard, Luke Kennard, we just got likely to play. He's 5,700, presuming he's going to start against Golden State. He looks reasonable. Memphis is pretty short on ball handlers, so he should have a decent role, even after missing at least the last game. Devin Booker, I mentioned shooting guard 9,800. That spot for Phoenix is glorious against Atlanta. A huge pace-up spot for them. Atlanta, I think, is third to last in defensive ratings, so excellent spot for the Suns tonight. Kevin Huerter, maybe a better play on DK than FanDuel. Norm Powell, Alec Burks, not the most comfortable kind of cheap value, but as of now, cheap value is a bit harder to come by on FanDuel as usual. Trey Murphy looks decent for New Orleans at 4.9. He'll look better if Zion and or Herb Jones is out, but still looks decent enough in projections off the bench as of now. The matchup for them against the Spurs is pretty awesome, so good spot for New Orleans. Harrison Barnes, like the epitome of a cash play. The Kings are playing the Pacers, so it's a good matchup for them. Barnes is not a very exciting play, but the minutes have been really up of late. He's shown a decent ceiling too if he gets hot, so it's definitely more of a cash play than a tournament play. But I don't mind going there. Power forward Domantas Sabonis looks awesome against the Pacers. Miles Turner's out for Indiana. Good spot for him, regardless of that. Indiana gets crushed in the paint. Sabonis should be able to do whatever he wants here. He's 10-2 on FanDuel, so actually cheaper than he is on DK. He looks like a core playing cash. Santi Aldama. Don't think I mentioned Xavier Tillman's doubtful for the Grizzlies. They are really short on bigs. Aldama's minute should be pretty secure. He's 5,900. Pretty safe mid-range cash play too. Noto has him as a core play. I think that's correct. Zion Williamson, John Kuminga, maybe kind of better DK plays. And at center, we're again looking at Aldama and Sabonis. I think Jalen Smith is viable too for 5.4. Assuming he plays, he's questionable. But if he plays, he should start for Miles Turner. So he'd be a good value in that scenario.
Okay. Sounds solid enough. Let's talk tournaments here. And for that, we kick it to Squirrel. Squirrel, what's your approach here as you kind of look at this slate with so much that we're still waiting on?
Sure. So just general slate overview. There's 2 games at 7, 2 games at 7:30, and a bunch of games at 8 o'clock. Everything else is 8 o'clock. 4 games at 8 o'clock. The 2 games in the middle, the 7:30 games, have 250 point totals. So that's about 12 points higher than every other game. And compared to Orlando, Minnesota, I think it's 30 something, 35 points higher. I was rating these games up in the middle of the day, talking about how I gave big high 248 point totals. Now they're even higher, 250 and a half. So as we get more and more value, we get more and more pieces from those games because a lot of players from those games are expensive. So I'm kind of thinking get even more value. If Zion Williamson ends up sitting out, maybe even Rudy Gobert sits, if RJ Barrett sits. So I am avoiding the first games if I can, and playing this slate for the most part. It starts at 7:30. And I will point out some exceptions to that as we go through. But So going position by position at point guard on FanDuel, like De'Aaron Fox, one of my top plays. He's in that fast-paced like Indiana Sacramento game. Don't mind getting like Fred VanVleet. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander getting the game like less and less of him throughout the day, which I kind of like. There's a 16-point spread there, and it's not one of the higher point total games. Mike Conley and Trey Jones kind of fit the mold of like they're okay. They never seem to like get. They always show up as like good point per dollar plays, but, like just never seem to get there. And I do like James Harden. He is in one of the 7 o'clock games against Detroit. Like he's one of the handful of players I would consider for the 7 o'clock games if you want to like lock up one roster spot. Moving to shooting guard, getting a bunch of like Kevin Herter, similar to De'Aaron Fox, is in that Sacramento Indiana game. Anything time total like 250 points, I mean, get to pay attention to it. Like Devin Booker, like spending up for Devin Booker. From the Phoenix Atlanta game, which is the other big total game, like Bradley Beal shows up as like the best point per dollar play. But I feel like he's taking a backseat to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, so I don't mind the idea of like going out of your way to spend up to get Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Just accept whatever value you get there. Lou Dort is showing up as a really good value play against Charlotte, and Tyler Hero is another guy from the 7 p.m. games that I would consider at shooting guard on FanDuel. Small forward, Trey Murphy, if especially if Zion ends up sitting, I'm getting to Trey Murphy either way. Jonathan Kuminga, and playing a bunch of minutes for Golden State and doing really well. And then Keegan Murray, also basically everybody on Sacramento, I would consider. Then also might want to like boost some Brandon Ingram just in case Zion ends up sitting. I like Brandon Miller with Charlotte. If you're like trying to run back from all these Oklahoma City guys. And yeah, did I mention Keegan Murray? Yeah, Sacramento. Power forward, getting a bunch of Santi Aldama. Domantas Sabonis is like one of my top plays. Karl Anthony Towns, the low point total game, but especially if Rudy Gobert ends up sitting, you may want to be proactively boosting him. And then Victor Wembanyama as well. Can always get like 8 blocks, and suddenly he's getting like 70 points on FanDuel. Center position, a lot of Santi Aldama, a lot of Jalen Smith, assuming he plays. We got to see that's in the middle like game with Indiana, and then some Pascal Siakam as well.
Okay, I'm seeing at least in the chat Şengün in. I don't know if that has come across the wires yet.
Yes, he's not really as good of a FanDuel play as DraftKings.
Okay, noted. Does Jalen Green keep crushing? He has been crushing, and he is a kind of streaky guy. Any interest there?
Sorry, who's that?
Jalen Green.
So he might do a little bit worse with with Şengün playing. I'm getting about equal amounts of Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green on FanDuel. He has been crushing, but it's against Toronto, so it might be Fred VanVleet night.
Gotcha. Oh, makes sense. A little narrative street here.
I think it is in Houston, though. So.
It's fine. Still. Let's see what else we got. Hey, we should know this show, by the way, in case you were unaware, it's sponsored by FanDuel. That's why it's free. Hit us with a little thumbs up. Big shout out to FanDuel for keeping this show free. If you bet $5 right now, you get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet wins with the FanDuel Sportsbook. For New Year's, there's in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Shout out to FanDuel for keeping this show free for y'all and for sponsoring the show on our end. One other quick note before we kick it to DK that is fairly important. Devin reached out to me and he said, hey, I forgot to include this, but make sure you say it. Stevie TPFL, if you don't know, he is literally the undisputed GOAT of NASCAR. Like, there's no arguments. He is the NASCAR guy. He's the sharpest DFS NASCAR guy in the world. Everyone agrees. He's doing a free NASCAR Grinders Live leading up to lock on the RotoGrinders YouTube Sunday, 7:30 Eastern in the PM. So make sure you are checking that out because free content from Stevie is absolute gold. I highly recommend to do that. Put it on your calendars now. Some people saying you are absolutely correct. He is like just undeniably the best at that. Squirrel, right? And there's no arguments there.
Yeah, I do have an argument with RJ Barrett. Is not playing, so that like boosts Emmanuel quickly a little bit. So now I think I'm probably going to get in like the 20% range of Emmanuel quickly on FanDuel. He's not really as in play on DraftKings.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Catching up. Yeah, I think it's time. I think we kick it over to DK. And for that, Taylor, we bring you back into the mix here. Are we starting to solve kind of some of these pieces that we were waiting for? Is the lineup coming together now, whereas maybe 10 minutes ago, it was still a big question mark?
Yeah. The Raptors also said quickly and Pirtle are probable. So no Thad Young in all likelihood. Very sad news there.
That's a good thing. Come on. Nobody wanted to do that. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, the Quickly thing is interesting. He should get usage with Barrett out. But we'll see what projections say. Yeah, as of now,
I love playing Quickly. He's one of those dudes where if he's in the right spot, like I want to play that guy. So I'm in on
yeah. He let's see, on DK he's 7-2, so he's up there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Steep,
all right. Well, let's walk through a DK build, Taylor, and just kind of we'll see where we land.
Sounds good. So Shea on DK is only 10-3. He's underpriced every single day on DK. Today is no exception. They're playing Charlotte. I think you're playing him in cash. No questions about it. Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, we talked about a little bit on FanDuel. They're cheap on DK, particularly VanVleet. He's been kind of mediocre lately, but prices come down to a very playable point. Mm-hmm. I think in cash, I do prefer Fred VanVleet to Green. Green does project well. He feels a little chasey because he's been going crazy lately, but projections say he's a good play. Good spot for them against Toronto, who's been quite mediocre defensively since they traded everyone. Bradley Beal, another guy that's been popping all day. He's 6'5" on DK. Kind of like VanVleet, mediocre game logs of late, but the price has come down enough to where he's pretty interesting in a great spot against Atlanta. Plug him in either guard spot, of course. Trey Jones, another one, only 5'5", definitely more of a cash play than a tournament play, I think. Josh Richardson was popping into some stuff. I think he's only 3'5". They're playing the Wizards, so I get it, but I don't think we need to go all the way down there for him in cash for sure. Shooting guard Kevin Huerter, definitely a core play at 5,100. That great the Indiana-Sacramento game. His minutes have been way up, kind of at the expense of Malik Monk lately. He is pretty easy to get to as a value in cash. I mentioned Jalen Green, Bradley Beal, Klay Thompson for 5'9", maybe a cash viable option. Should be back tonight after missing the last game. We just got Herb Jones out, Larry Nance out, and no Zion from what I see. So perhaps Trey Murphy once again looks good. We mentioned him on FanDuel for 4'9". DK, let's see. He's 4'7", shooting guard, small forward eligible. I think he's going to pop into the cash lineup now, probably. With Herb Jones out, should start again, regardless of the Zion news. If Zion's out, he theoretically looks even better. But we shall see. Getting back to small forward, Jonathan Kuminga for 6'2" on DK is underpriced. He's been playing very well lately in a starting role for Golden State. Still arguably underpriced. Decent spot for them against a very thin Memphis team. Harrison Barnes and Cedi Osman are a couple of small forwards that pop as value options. Cedi Osman for 3.5. Played 28 minutes in the last game with Keldon out. Don't think we can really bank on that again, but if you want to go all the way down for a punt, it's fine. I'd prefer to not do that if I can avoid it. Harrison Barnes will likely kind of fall at the expense of Trey Murphy, I would imagine now. Power forward Jalen Smith is a guy that grades out well for 4.4 on DK. Should start with Miles Turner out if he plays. Again, he's questionable, so we'll see what happens with that. Victor Wembanyama for 9.3. The price is coming up, but he's still pretty cheap for what he can do. Not an ideal spot necessarily for them against New Orleans, but it's still just an underpriced Wemby. I don't think people will have qualms with that. Santi Aldama, maybe not as big a priority on DK as on FanDuel for cash, but still looks good. I think he's also 5'9" over here. And at center, Şengün looks solid now that he's in for 87. Good matchup for them against Pirtle and the Raptors. Isaiah Jackson's playable as a punt for 3-3 just because he's so cheap. Like, I'd feel better about him than Chetty Osman, for example. He may become the best value on the slate if Jalen Smith is also out. So keep an eye on that news. Hopefully we'll get it relatively soon. And yeah, Sabonis over here too for 10-4. He's priced up, but it's just about as good a spot as you can find for Sabonis in the paint against Indiana without Miles Turner. And yeah, that probably wraps up the pool on DK Cash.
Okay, very good. Squirrel, I want to bring you in, and I'm seeing a few names pop up that multiple people reference. So let's start there. One name was Jordan Poole, and the other name is Joe Val. Where is your interest level on those two guys? I think you're muted.
Jordan Poole stuff for me because I live in the DC area, and he's terrible.
That is tough. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's
yeah,
tough.
he's probably been like the most disappointing player. Objectively, he's probably been the most disappointing player in the NBA this season.
Yep.
So I see no reason to go to Jordan Poole. I don't want to lock up the early, like the slot in the early game. It's a bad matchup against Miami. I like, even if they're trying to showcase him for like a potential trade or something, like he can't get it done. He would shoot 2 for 100. So yeah, I'm not going to Jordan Poole. Valanciunas, got to see. Like, I think Zion is now a game time decision. So I do think he enters the mix, especially with Larry Nance being out. So it's something to consider. I think the boost there like would mostly go to like Trey Murphy, Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum. But yeah, you might want to consider some Valanciunas if Zion Williamson's out.
Well, J-Val is one of those guys where if he gets the minutes, he can murder. I mean, he can put up massive nights. What is his minutes projection now? And do we have Zion projected in or out? I
think right now we haven't projected in, but we just I don't know if things have even updated for Nance and Herb Jones being out. Right. And like the primary beneficiary of Herb Jones being out is probably Trey Murphy. Sure. But it's Nance being out helps Valanciunas. He had been playing in the like low 20s minutes, and then he played 33 minutes last game. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think he's 6,400 on DraftKings. So I would wait and see. He's not like a guy I'd really go to heavily, I think, unless Zion's out.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Walk me through a little DK tournament build, Squirrel. What do you got?
Yeah, so my general thing is I'm going to try to be underweight Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he's going to be pretty popular. It's a 16-point spread. Like, Oklahoma City messes with their like minutes and rotation sometimes. I like the idea of basically being under the field on SGA and spreading that out to some of the other more expensive players, like Kevin Durant, just because like that game's got a sky high total, and I think people aren't going to get to like Durant and Booker as much as they should. And then also that like Sacramento Indiana game, as it was on FanDuel, is a game that you want to be getting some pieces of. To go position by position on DraftKings, getting a lot more of the Houston guys. I know I wasn't super high on Jalen Green on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's much easier to fit into a lineup. Same thing with Fred VanVleet. I'm going to be getting some CJ McCollum most likely. Like the only guy I'd really consider from the early games is Tyler Hero, and I'm not even sure if I'll play him because I don't know if I want to like lock up the roster spot. Getting less like Trey Jones on DraftKings than I was on FanDuel, like getting equal amounts of Trey Jones and like Devin Vassell. Shooting guard, getting a lot of Kevin Huerter. So he's a piece from the Sacramento Indiana game on DraftKings that like fits particularly well. Getting Jalen Green also shooting guard eligible. Getting some Brandon Ingram on DraftKings and Trey Murphy as well. Like getting some Bradley Beal, he's really well priced. I think I want to be under the field, though. I guess I'll be playing him, but I'll lately be under the field because he's pretty cheap. But I just, like, if it's Kevin Durant or Devin Booker night, you don't necessarily want a ton of Bradley Beal. Small forward, Lou Dort. He's a piece I'm not so worried about with the spread in the Charlotte-Oklahoma City game, just because he's only 3,900. So I'd rather, like, miss a little bit on the cheaper end, right, than miss on the expensive end with SGA. and he's been playing like 8 minutes into the 30s. Getting a bunch of Jonathan Kuminga on DraftKings as well as FanDuel. Actually, I've been getting more of them on DraftKings and FanDuel. Trey Murphy, some Chetty Osman. So now, like with the value opening up, getting a little more of the New Orleans San Antonio game. Power forward, gonna get a lot of Jalen Smith if he's playing. He's only 4,400, so with Miles Turner out. And then if you're not getting Jalen Smith, you're most likely getting some like Obi Toppin and Isaiah Jackson. Getting a lot of Victor Wembanyama. Wembanyama is much cheaper, I think, on DraftKings and FanDuel. So getting a bunch of Wembanyama, he's only like 9,300. It's just too cheap for him. Getting some Draymond, some Karl Anthony Towns, and a little bit more Santi Aldama. Center position, Alperen Şengün and Domantas Sabonis, along with Aldama, Jalen Smith, and Victor Wembanyama. I mentioned in the power forward section.
Okay, very good. That gives us, I don't know how you guys were able to move through that as fast as you did, but we somehow have a whopping 17 minutes here until lock, which is absurd. That leaves us plenty of time for questions and answers and any side rants that you want to go on. Those are allowed here. I feel like Squirrel may have one or two like loaded, ready to go.
I got one. I'm going to put myself on mute. My house is about to go nuts with my nephews just came over.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fair. Go for it. Okay. I mean,
I'll try to take myself off when I start saying stuff.
You have heard my house with, kids and dogs and everything else. So that is allowed. Let's see what we got here as we dive into the QQs. As always, I'm starting with the RG Discord. So scrolling up in the live stream channel just a little bit. What do we got here? Okay, here we go. We'll start with Mike Ev, FanDuel cash question, Taylor, Harrison Barnes and Nick Richards, or Jalen Smith and Abdia, or any other small forward with 6,200 less.
I like the Jalen Smith side. Small forward 6,200 or less. Let's see. Herder's right there. I think he's fine. Harrison Barnes, I just don't want to do that, but I get it. I would just play Herder if you have the money over Barnes.
Okay, great. I saw this question in the YouTube from John Brockmeyer, and I absolutely love it. Taylor, can you recap and review what news we're still waiting on? Because at the top of the show, you gave me like 20 things and it blew my brain. And I feel like 10 things have broken since then. So what are we still waiting on? And how do you rank that as far as like, if this happens, it throws the whole build into upheaval?
Yeah, so the Q tags left are Zion, Rudy Gobert, Jalen Smith, and Halliburton. Halliburton matters a bit. He's on a limit, but if he's out, it's going to be a lot of Nembhard and McConnell as values. I think they'll be viable because that game, Sacramento, Indiana, has a really high total. All these Q tags matter, actually. Like if Gobert's out, maybe Naz Reid becomes the best value on the slate. If Smith is out, Isaiah Jackson maybe becomes the best value on the slate. And if Zion's out, a lot more McCollum, a lot more Brandon Ingram. I think Valanciunas in that scenario becomes better too. Already with Nance out, he should see more solidified or at least safer minutes. And if Zion's also out, Valanciunas is viable in all formats for sure.
Okay, so still some pretty significant news we're waiting on. I appreciate you kind of walking back through that. Back to the QQs, and let's see what we got here. FanDuel cash question for you, Taylor. Beal Booker or SGA and Kennard?
I feel better about Beal Booker.
Okay. This is an interesting question from Chinatown. Squirrel, does Sabonis have any incentive to play hard tonight? Does he sometimes not? What does that mean?
Well, he's playing against Indiana. I actually wrote up that, because he was traded from Indiana for Tyrese Halliburton. And he's put up in 3 games, he's put up 2 double-doubles and a triple-double against Indiana. But I don't think he's necessarily motivated by that, but he has been going berserk lately. He had 26 rebounds 2 games ago. I think he's averaging almost 15 rebounds for the month. And Indiana Indiana's missing their starting center. so yeah, something to consider.
Yeah. Someone else thrown in all-star snub as well. So revenge narrative, all-star snub narrative. Plus he's just a professional and should probably try hard at the sport. He's getting paid millions of dollars to play narrative. DK single entry question, Squirrel. Trey Murphy versus Cody Martin And then separate question, Aldama versus Nick Richards.
The first one I would go with Trey Murphy, and what was the second one about Josh Richardson?
It was Aldama versus Nick Richards.
Oh, Nick Richards. You can go with Nick Richards. Oklahoma City doesn't rebound, so
Okay,
like
that's fair. This is kind of a fun question from Boolies here. In a FanDuel large field GPP, which teams do I want multiple players from, and which ones am I limiting? So we'll just leave it at which teams do you want multiple players from, keeping in mind that I realize sometimes you're just game stacking, maybe two sides of one game, but that's separate from what you're doing in most entries.
I would say Sacramento and Indiana is maybe, if I had to get multiple pieces from a game, it would be Sacramento, Indiana. Maybe after that, it would be New Orleans and San Antonio, just especially with Zion potentially missing, the upside of Wembanyama or Devin Vassell. And then Charlotte and Oklahoma City is one that's going to maybe show up in optimal lineups that I don't like as much because it's just got a lower total, could be a blowout.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. What else do we got? FanDuel GPP. Taylor, I'm going to bring you in just for fun. Who do you prefer? This is always the hardest question for me. KD or Book? Do you have a preference? Do either of you have a strong lean?
I actually kind of wrote up Kevin Durant with just the thought that on DraftKings, Durant's not cheaper than Devin Booker, and he feels like forward positions. Either one of them can go berserk though. So, neither one of them is really showing up in optimal lineups. So, but either one of them can also go for 70 actual NBA points. So,
right.
Yeah.
But that's a good reason. The positional availability thing is a good reason to kind of push you towards. There's a follow-up question from Jack. Can you play both KD and Book? That seems like a lot of salary. They're both not going for 70 points, right?
Yeah, actually, I kind of agree with that exact logic.
Okay, so no, one or the other?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, most likely.
Yeah, unless you're game stack, bring it back.
Yeah, but they're both so points dependent, and they're both so expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could do it, but you're maybe betting on overtime there.
Yeah. Okay.
Are they both going to go for 40 NBA points? Probably not. It's
Probably
possible,
not.
but probably not.
Okay. FanDuel tournament question. Taylor, is Isaiah Jackson at play at all with Turner out, or is that too thin, parentheses, with Smith in?
That was FanDuel?
Yes, FanDuel tournament, Isaiah Jackson.
Yeah, he's 4'9". I guess it's viable. Obviously, he's going to be a lot better if Jalen Smith is also out. So if you want to play for that and hope it breaks your way, then yeah, I think that's fine.
Great. FanDuel cash question, Taylor, right back to you here. Cody Martin and Tyler Hero, or Trey Jones and Herter?
Jones Herter.
Great. Squirrel, who is your favorite center in a FanDuel GPP without considering salary, which is a weird way to word that?
I would say Sabonis if you're not counting salary. I mean, he's 10-2. I think he might be the most expensive player on. No, he's not the most expensive player, but he's up there. I think he's the third most expensive player. So any center eligible, so bonus.
Great. Okay. Back to you here, Squirrel, from Smoke and Jay. By the way, we still have 10 minutes until lock, so get your questions in. I'm coming to you soon, YouTube. Hit us with the thumbs up. I'm coming to you shortly. Smoke and Jay, FanDuel GPP. Among OKC scrubs, assuming blowout, are there any favorite cheap scrub plays to fill out your lineup, or are we doing too much?
I'd go Lou Dort is not a scrub. He's been playing 30-something minutes, but he's only 4,700 on FanDuel and 3,900 on DraftKings. It's I think he can get there in a blowout. You're not playing him because he's going to the guys that come in for the blowout might be playing 8 minutes. It's they're not going to win you a tournament. Lou Dort can do enough at 3,900 on DraftKings. If Oklahoma City's scored so many points, it's blowout. Maybe you want Lou Dort.
Gotcha. Okay. Chinatown, who said does Sabonis have anything to play for, says, I was being sarcastic, Roth, you idiot. That's my bad. I didn't catch the sarcasm font. That's my bad on that. Is Wemby okay in DK Cash, Taylor? Also, is Hero silly in cash, or is he less shooting dependent than he used to be? It just seems so fragile for cash.
Yeah, Wemby's definitely okay for cash. Hero, the matchup's awesome, but I think I'd prefer to just not play him and wait on potential news. Hero's not bad if you can't afford to wait or whatever, but Ideally, I don't know. I don't love Hero with Rozier and Butler and Bam all in.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Both Boolies and Who Mike said, hey, Bruce Brown is popping in optimals. Should we be worried about that?
I was gonna bring that up because with Barrett out, he's probably gonna start. And the minutes, I think we had him up to 34. So he's cheap enough to certainly be in play.
Okay, Squirrel, do you have any Bruce Brown?
I can see myself getting some Bruce Brown now that I've like updated everything entirely. But now that Barrett is out, but I'm probably gonna get more quickly. But I gotta see.
Yeah. Okay. Last question from the Discord for a minute while I take some YouTube is DKGPP. Is there a viable 3K last piece punt in the util? Squirrel, is there a stone cold min 3K guy that's going to get us like 25 points or more?
Let's see. It's got to be exactly 3K.
Yes. Not 3-1 is way too much money. We're 3K nothing.
Probably Jalen Williams, but not the good Jalen Williams.
Okay.
The other
the 3K Jalen Williams. Yeah. All right. That's fair. Let's see. Jumping into the YouTube chat. Hit us with the thumbs up. DKGPP, Sabonis, or Wemby. Who do you have more of, Squirrel?
Sabonis. Sabonis definitely on FanDuel. On DraftKings, still it's going to be Wemby.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's a big difference in prices between the two sites.
I was going to say, like, blocks wise, on FanDuel, you get 3 points for blocks, and Wemby can literally have 8 blocks. So it's also, he's got upside there for sure. Let's see. Is Kenrich Williams a good play? Did we mention Kenrich?
I think he started last game, but only the first half.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's fragile if you play him for sure.
Okay. Booker and Trey, John says. Booker and Trey. Is he trying to run them both in a lineup, Squirrel?
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty off the board game stack that could definitely hit. Like, you wouldn't be shocked at the end of the night if like Trey Young and Devin Booker both have outstanding games. They're both going to be pretty low owned, and they're in the same game. So yeah,
yeah, I love it. Okay. Tyler says, any props? Oh, I don't know. We didn't look at props, did we, guys? No, we're deep in the DFS world right now. Sorry. However, you can always hit the prop shop, and you can check out scores and odds. If you haven't done the scores and odds or the props and pick'em package, you should be. It's a brand new package. Experts at RotoGrinders projections team taking our premium stats, combing through the market for inefficiencies. Using that model, you can easily see when lines are just flat out off. You see where the best spot to find them is, how likely that prop is to hit based on our tool. Try out that new props and pick'em package as a 3-day pass. It will auto-renew at the monthly rate once those 3 days are up. So make sure you're aware of that. But use the link in our description for a 3-day pass to the props and pick'em package. There might be the answer to your question in that package already. In fact, there probably is. 3v3 question on DK, Taylor, SGA, Gallo, and Nas, or Trey, Top, and Whitmore.
I think the first one, even though Gallo is Gallo, but he's cheap enough. I think you can do that.
Okay. Squirrel, where is the Jimmy Butler love? Where is the love?
Yeah, it's not here. I'm not getting to Jimmy Butler. I don't want to use you don't want to use the roster spots at 7 p.m. And I'm like, if I was going to use a roster spot, I think it would probably be on Tyler Hero or maybe Bam rather than Jimmy Butler. Like he has no reason to go like berserk against Washington.
Yeah, like he could have a good game, but there's no like great reason to play him. Essentially, yeah. All right, and it costs that roster spot that you want the flexibility and the salary to have for later. DKGPPs from Brian Taylor. I'll bring you in. Kawhi or Wemby in a DKGPP.
Still Wemby, I think. Even though he'll be more popular, but still Wemby.
Okay. Joe says Taylor DK guard Trent, Pippen, Conchar, or Murphy.
Murphy now.
Okay. Ocean says Cam Whitmore. Squirrel. I've seen his name a couple times now. You got any Cam Whitmore?
I think you can go there in tournaments. I think he would have been a little bit better if Shingun was out there.
Okay. FanDuel GPP question from Smokin' Jay. Squirrel. He prefaces it with, hey, I understand this is gross, but near min starting Bryce McGowan's okay?
I never liked Bryce McGowan. Like he's one of those guys who just starts and just never seems to do a whole lot.
Okay.
Yeah, like looking at his previous starts, like 13 minutes, like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. If you can only spend 3,600 at shooting guard, you can roll the dice. I don't love it though.
Okay. Chinatown in the chat says this is the person who said this bonus thing and I didn't really understand the sarcasm font. He did not actually call me an idiot, just for what it's worth. He wants me to note I added that myself. He did not call me an idiot. Don't go after Chinatown. I called myself an idiot. He did not call me one. Aside says, what are your thoughts on Harden in FanDuel Cash, Taylor?
It's fine. It's a great spot for them. He's 8-8, so yeah, if you land there, I think it's okay.
Okay. Sean says, Squirrel, what do you think about PJ Washington, FanDuel GPP?
Yeah, I think you can go there. It kind of fits the Nick Richards mold that so he doesn't really rebound. And yeah, you're probably going to be getting some Oklahoma City pieces. So if you want to pair them with a Charlotte guy like PJ Washington, I think that makes some sense.
Okay, we are less than 2 minutes until lock. Hey, hit us with a little thumbs up. I'm not going to beg, but it's free content. It's just hit the thumbs up. It's the right thing to do. Champu Tyler says, GPP, which OKC Williams do you prefer? Squirrel, which OKC Williams do you prefer in the GPP?
I'm trying to think of. It's like if Jalen Williams is out, there's worse, like the Jalen Williams that isn't good, and then there's Kenrich Williams. I don't really love any of the Williamses.
Okay, that's fair. J3 says shout out to Keith Eister, aka the Iceman, and everybody working hard behind the scenes. Shout out. We love the Iceman. He's good people. What else do we got? DKGPP, Williams or Wiggins from OKC. So, Squirrel, is this where you'd prefer Wiggins because you don't really love the Williams?
Yeah, I'd go with Wiggins.
FanDuel Cash question from George. More Williams here. Is Kenrich Williams okay in FanDuel Cash?
He is, where is he? 3.9. Yeah. If you must, I guess you can do worse in that range.
Okay. All right. That's not my question. Okay, let's see. 3,700 DK final piece, Squirrel. Last time I gave you 3K. Now I'm giving you 37 in the util.
Let's see, 3,700 in the util. Maybe go Chetty Osman.
Okay, very nice. Is Scary Terry going to hit his shots tonight? Taylor, is Scary Terry going to hit his shots tonight?
It's the Wizards, so likely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, probably. Let's see. Okay, last one here from CW. He said last one, not me, but it's also lock. Giddy Toppin or Hero Gallo, Squirrel? Giddy Toppin or Hero Gallo?
I'm not sure I like either of those, and Hero Gallo are already locked.
Okay, that's fine. A couple more questions before we bounce here. DK GPPs, how much Van Fleet do you have, Squirrel?
I might end up with like as much as 50%, depending on how the news breaks.
Was that a 5-0?
Yeah, probably be like 30 to 50%. He's really cheap on DraftKings.
Okay.
I saw that.
Wow.
It's like DraftKings specific.
Yeah. DK single entry Squirrel Fox with Pascal Siakam run back. Is that viable?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Hammer says, hey, great show, Kevin. Thank you. I thought I brought the energy today. I felt pretty good. I appreciate that. BitCrook says, hey, Cody Zeller is popping in some optos. Is he viable in cash as a last piece? That is not a name I expected to see or read. Taylor, Cody Zeller?
I think he's the backup to Valanciunas. Let's see, 18 minutes. Ideally not. Ideally, we can play Isaiah Jackson. I think I'd rather just play him anyway if you have 300 extra. Avoiding Zeller is probably smart.
Okay. Yeah, I think Joe Val is just going to absolutely murk tonight. Like if I'm not playing tonight, which is rare for me, but I would be all aboard on that one. That's my feel it my plums play of the day. We have hit the lock. I got some kids to feed, so we're going to bounce on out of here. For Taylor, for Squirrel, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crushed.